Good morning, good afternoon. So we've got that new session, 30-minute session that we'll publish on YouTube. And the topic for today is Janneke Schopman, or Janneke Schopman, but Schopman, who was the assistant of India women's team at the Olympics. And she's taken over the helm of that team. So that raises a lot of fantastic challenge, but that raises a lot of questions. Is that going to make a difference? The fact that she's a woman is a difference. The fact that is a gender difference. Is a difference the fact that she's coaching women, or coach is coaching women rather than men. And it's the last one. We'll see how long we spend on it, but it also shows an investment in the future. So there's only 3 years to the next Olympics. Countries are wondering why some are getting more medals than others, and then we see India is doing something fantastic. So Michael, Anthony, without further ado, let's go with that.
Well, just before Anthony starts, because he's more familiar with the women's scene than I am, I phoned Dr. Batra and Debbie Veo in India. They haven't announced a women's coach yet. Because the contract with Sai starts in November. So on a contractual basis, they go from November till November. So she basically will be there doing things anyway, because she's going to be the coach, but not officially just yet. So that's what's happening.
And Sai is the Sports Authority of India, for those that don't know that. The government body that controls it all effectively, or controls a lot of funding anyway, let's put it that way. Those in Holland would know her from her playing days, gold medalist when she played in Beijing. Was a good player in her day, there's no doubting that. For those who remember back, her first international coaching was with the USA women's team over there. And if you were to sum that up, you'd probably say she failed in the USA. And you've got to wonder why that is, because it's not necessarily because she was a poor coach or anything like that. So why do people fail in coaching roles when others might succeed or do it differently? There's a lot of reasons potentially for that, but part of the issue will be the cultural challenges that you have when you go into a different culture is difficult to deal with. The Dutch going into the USA is difficult. The USA people are difficult, actually, if you're pretty honest about it. But anyway, it is difficult, and probably as a new coach in the international environment, that would have made it even more challenging for her in how she was going to deal with the situation of the USA. She comes out of a Dutch hockey environment where hockey is a big sport. In the USA, it's not at all. It's a very minor, bit of a nothing sport. And so the whole mentality around it, the money available, all of the things you've got to have to make it successful weren't there for her. So that's quite a bit different to what she was used to, and that would be a hell of an adjustment for her. And eventually she lost her job there, and that happens with coaches. It's not a big deal either way, really. And the Indian team coach at the time offered her a role as an assistant coach, a technical analyst, shall we say. And I told her to lean on around the experiences of the Olympics, around the thinking and how you might win in a big tournament in particular was where he was going to use her knowledge, and that's pretty smart by him. And I'd have to say, looking from the outside in, she probably added some value in that space for that Indian team in coping with what they had to do in a big event like the Olympics, and how they managed to get through big games when they might have been struggling. And so there are some people that are much better suited to being assistant coaches, and there are some people that are better suited to being head coaches. The challenge for the Indian team, if they appoint her, will be, is she better to be an assistant coach or better to be a head coach? For me, the gender of the person doesn't matter. It's about the skills of the person and dealing with the gender they're coaching. And that's the key thing. And those skills are wide and varied, and it is different between coaching men and women. So will she know those things better than any man will because she's a female? That's what people say. I think that's flawed logic in myself. I think you can get those skills anyway. If you want to coach women, you have to do things differently. than what you would do if you're coaching men. I talked about a few of those last week in the way you're going to operate, or maybe the week before, I can't remember. But communication style and how you manage the individuals, I talked about social cohesion. That's a really key difference between the men and the women. The women need more social cohesion than the men. Don't get me wrong, the men still need social cohesion, but they're much more task cohesion orientated. And just that alone is a big difference between coaching men and women. But with that social cohesion, you've got to add in the cultural environment that you're in. What does the social cohesion look like in India in comparison to Australia or England or France or Holland? Each of it would be slightly different, and you have to know that to be able to act on it. And so that's an important component. So the challenge for her in that environment that she's going into will be, how does she step from being an assistant coach to a head coach? That is often difficult to do in the same team. There is an old saying, in coaching, you want an assistant coach that's never going to replace you. Or some people would say the other way around, you want an assistant coach that is going to replace you, because then there is succession planning. So would they have set up initially to put her in as the head coach when they first brought her in? Probably not. But that's the way it's ended up. So, will she have that skill set to manage that Indian team and step them up levels, because they still have to step up like the Indian men do? Those teams have to move from the hero status they're in now into the hard work status and step up to another level to be able to win competitions. And there's quite a gap between that Indian women's team and even third place, but certainly there's a big gap between Argentina, Holland, and the Indian team right now. So they have a lot of work to do to get up to that level. So is that the right coach to take them up?
Let me just interrupt you for a second, Anthony. One of the cultural problems that she's got that you don't have in any other countries is that the women are supposed to go home and look after the family. So that's why you don't find many older Indian women actually playing hockey, because as soon as they hit a particular age, they're expected to go back to the village and look after the parents and the family. But it's going to be interesting now, because the Indian women have been given quite a lot of money, so the families can see that hockey may be a way forward in terms of getting money from now on, because it is professional in India. Everyone gets paid to play hockey. So she's going to have to grapple with that extra cultural issue, which is a tough one, especially in the female side. Anthony?
Yeah, that applies in several countries. It applies in Korea, for example. If you look at the Korean team, they're always about 21 or 22 or 23, the females. And that's simply because at that age group, they get married and make babies. And that's their role in life, if you like. It's a bit different to here, for example. The same in Russia. A lot of them give up when they're 21, 22, 23, because they're going to get married and make babies. And part of that is their welfare system. So the families will look after the parents, and that's the way they work. So if you want to be looked after when you're older, you better make some babies when you're younger. Right? So it's a welfare process, and that's what happens in India, and a lot of other places. So it is a big factor in these teams, and Michael's right. Will it change because there's this money come into the woman now? And will it change the attitude of the woman? Will they not be quite as hungry because of that money now? So there's a lot of questions on that team and how they're going to step up that challenge. And those questions really rest solely on the coach's head. Will she be the right person with the right personality to drive that team to higher levels or not? It's a difficult question to answer at the moment, but from my point of view, if I look at it, I would say there's a question mark on whether she can deliver those things for that Indian team in that environment.
It's extremely tough. The other problem you've got is the media. If you don't do well in the first tournament, the media will start piling the pressure on, literally. And they'll be, if you lose 2 tournaments and you don't do well, the pressure is, enormous. She's got to be able to handle that sort of thing. And you don't get that in any other country, because the media, when you go to a media conference in India, there's 30, 40, 50 media turn up, TV cameras and everything. It's not like you talk to your local newspaper. It's big business as well.
Yeah, so the gender challenges you've got to put in the context of social challenges and cultural challenges. And they're all part of that whole picture that you've got to think about. When you're coaching a team from the country you're from, it's easy. You kind of know, and you naturally know what's going to happen. It's much more difficult when you step out of that environment. And when you step out of that environment into one that's completely different to what you're used to, it's even harder again. And so, yeah, now she's been exposed to that through an assistant coach role that she's had. So she's got some idea on how that's going to work. The difference now is the fact that there's a bit of hero worship going on and a bunch of money for these players. So how are the players going to react to this situation? Because it's difficult for them. I did notice from an Indian men's point of view the other day, Manpreet, who's the Indian team captain, kind of saying, okay, you've had your fun. Now we've got to get back to hard work because now we've got to win the next Olympics. That was a comment that he made, which I think is fair enough. You know, there's a gap now. It's time to get back to it. You haven't seen the same thing said from a women's side of thing over there, so they're still probably basking in a bit of glory in some ways. In lots of ways, you can't blame them, but they do have to get back to some work because they have even more improvement than the men have to do. So there's the challenge for the coach. Who she appoints as an assistant coach is probably the biggest challenge she's got. And so does she find someone from India that'll do the job? Does she find someone from another Asian country that's going to have some idea that can help out? Or is it someone from completely different environment, maybe even from Holland again? I don't know. Is that going to be good or bad in that situation? I would suggest it's probably bad, so that she's got to think carefully about who that's going to be.
Picking your assistant is always difficult in India. They don't necessarily want you to succeed. They would rather take your place. So, and the other problem she's got, they've got a reasonable pool of players in India, more so in the men's side, but the women's. Selection processes are always really difficult, because the selectors come from various regions, Punjabi on the north, Bangalore south, Kerala, and they like to pick their own players. And the coach, because unless you've been there a long time, won't know the players really well. And so you'll end up with a team of north and south. When I was there, I had dinner with Sachin Tendulkar, the cricketer, and I said to him, so why have you got a foreign coach in the cricket team? And he said, it's really simple. He said, because he's to keep the peace between the north and the south. He said he doesn't coach. He said he just keeps the peace.
That's often an advantage in a lot of countries, because the foreign coach is out of the politics, doesn't know about the politics, so kind of step in and I'm just going to be the coach. I don't know what's going on here. If they're a smart coach, they'll get to understand it because they'll need to work within it. But it was the situation in Russia. There was politics there. You know, that was a nightmare place to be, really. India is politics everywhere, and it's a difficult place to navigate around. India, it's a really difficult place. But it's the same everywhere. All these things are happening. And if you're the coach, you've got to be able to work your way through those things. So you have to have skills in that space to be a top-level coach. We go back to selection. It's tricky. In India, it's tricky. Partly it's tricky because there's so many goddamn players you can pick from. So that's part of the challenge over there. But the disorganized nature of what they're doing makes it tricky as well. Yeah. But then I question selection. Like I see today, the Amsterdam club there has picked up one player we've been very critical of here. So I wonder why that coach would pick up that player from Australia. It doesn't make sense to me. What were they looking at when they're assessing players for their squad, for the Amsterdam squad? It doesn't make sense to us over here.
Joost, where did Amsterdam finish last year?
Amsterdam, I guess it was like 5th or 6th place, and top 4 is the playoffs.
Yeah, they failed because they sacked the coach.
Yeah,
right?
the man we talk about, right?
Yeah.
They just on the playoff, yes.
They didn't play playoffs.
Yeah.
The problem was the coach. The coach was an old player of the team. It was a Spanish guy. I forgot his name. He was from Kampong before. What was
Santi Fleischer.
Oh, Santi Fleischer, yeah. But
he was Sandy, really?
He was really good in the group with the old players, you know, with Verga. He could, and also at Kampong, also at other places, the only big achievement he had was indoor 2nd place.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, but he was a great player in his day, right? But that's
really. I have something.
A fantastic player. But that was people making an assessment that he was going to be a good coach because he was a good player. That's a poor assessment. So you can't possibly do that in the scenario.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But you will like this guy more, I guess.
Yeah, no.
He's my
Dr.
old
Richard.
Dr. Richard. He's my old roommate.
Yeah.
He's a interesting character.
So we also had
prick you'd ever come across.
Michael Anthony. I don't know if you looked at the chat. There were a couple of questions, and one of them, and it's something that you addressed in the past, but I think it's a good thing to mention that again. Oliver had a question: does the pool of players get chosen for her, or is she going to be able to have really the authority to choose whoever she wants?
No, she'll get a say, but she won't get total say. She won't get total say. There'll be there'll be 3 selectors, and there'll be a government selector and her. That's how and sometimes the high performance director will sit in as well. And that's how it's selected. You normally walk into a selection meeting and the selectors have already met and decided who they want from the north and the south and the east and the west. And then you're just fiddling around the edges at that stage. It's pretty tough. It's pretty tough. And it's very difficult to see the players because they're so diverse in so many states. It's really difficult to find them. You know, the villages, you know, one guy comes from Manipur. To go from Manipur by train to Bangalore takes a week and a half by train. It's a tough place. And the languages, you've also got a language problem as well. You can travel 10 kilometres and they speak a different language from that group. So it's a translation process in terms of who speaks. That's why you find a majority of Punjabis and a majority of people from Bangalore. Bangaloreans speak English, Punjabis speak Bangalore, or it's a Punjabi language. It's a pretty tough place.
Yeah. So it's surprising when we hear you people in Holland say it's too far to go to Amsterdam. You know, what is it, 300 kilometres from north to south of the whole country?
Yes.
So
Maybe a little
really,
bit more.
400 kilometres. I'll give you
Yes, max.
500. Yeah.
Give me 5. Give me 5.
I'm going to drive 500 kilometres to clean a pub soon. So there you go.
And there are some issues.
I'll try and make it 2 or 3, and it's by the beach, so I might have a couple of days holiday as well. But yeah, transport's an interesting one because it's relative to the local environment, right? And in a smallish country, everyone perceives the problem to be difficult. In Australia, 5 hours to get from Sydney to Perth on a plane. If you wanted to go there, so that, you know, that's quite a long way. How far can you fly from, you know, Amsterdam in 5 hours?
And you're almost in Australia.
No, you're in Antwerp in the Kennedy Tunnel.
I reckon you've just hit India by that stage and you should stop there and have a visit.
But you wouldn't quite make it in 5 hours.
Everyone should go there.
So
Should just stop at Italy, I reckon. Anyway.
Yeah.
we'll conclude on that for this session, of course. So what we'll do like exactly like last week. Michael's going to give us another Zoom link. I'll share that with you guys and you can continue the conversation. We'll stop the recording very soon. Again, this session's been made in partnership with Mosquito, New Range. Yes, Tribaal, New Range, Chrome, fantastic. Hockey People, Hockey Source. And we're still waiting for the full details of your brand, Joost. We can include that maybe a little bit.
Yeah, we're looking to have a look at your brand, make an assessment.
Yes, exactly.
I don't have it here.
And then we're working with Michael and Anthony, Oliver. We're working on the next masterclass. We'll tell you exactly when that is as soon as we've got more details. We've got coachingstations.com live. It's not completely ready yet. There's still a lot of work and arguments on it, so that's great. It's live. It's alive. It's live and it's alive, but there's still quite a few touches. but we're definitely working on it. So just keep checking. If you want to take part to this session, because we'll put this on YouTube. If you want to take part in this session, you can send us messages, coaching stations, or via YouTube, and we'll take it from there. We'll see you on the other side.
Okay, I'm going to send you
wish
the.
you a good day and a good weekend.